Hello there, armor nerd. For an armor nerd you must be if you went and clicked a thumbnail like that. Today's video will be a little bit different than my usual fare because for once I will not be the one yapping. Instead, we'll have the privilege of learning from Wade Allen, a collector, student, and maker of Western European armor for over 30 years. This is a recording of the show and tell demonstration he gave at the Forging 2025. The Forging being a semi-annual gathering of deep armor nerds, like people who are interested in making armor. And to this demonstration, Wade brought a selection of pieces from his personal collection. These are real extant pieces, and therefore absolutely invaluable ways to learn about armor and the way it looked, the way it moved, the way it fitted the body. So though unfortunately you can't reach through the screen and play with these pieces the way we were able to in person, I hope the details discussed here will nevertheless inform your understanding of the physicality of historical European armor. The full demo was nearly 3 hours long, so for my own editing sanity, I will be breaking this up into parts. So welcome to part 1, a discussion of the shape of historical breastplates and backplates.
If you want to recreate armor, you need a set of skills, hammering skills, working skills, metalworking skills, but you also need to know what you're trying to copy. You need to get a feel for what they did, how things worked, the aesthetic that was behind these pieces. So, live in museums. Nowadays, unlike when I started back in the day, in the dark ages, websites exist. You can look at things all over the world. Get in contact with pieces if you can. And that's why I do these kinds of talks, because I'm one of the few people who's willing to bring all of this stuff out and hand it to you and really let you get a feel for it. So pick it up, play with it, move it around in your hands, look at the inside, look at the details. If they move, move them. See how the pieces are moving on each other. It lets you understand what's going on. When you're making something, then of course, sketch, 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 find real pieces, sketch some more, work into understanding that piece, and then you can move on to what everybody else does, which is just bang on some metal. And really, it's just banging on metal after that. Okay, breastplate, turn of the 16th century, could be a little earlier, could be a little later. It's probably a little later due to the shape of the neck hole. It's a little flatter, so it's probably a little later. There's a similar breastplate sitting over there. It's a little earlier, it's much nicer. Henry VIII Silvered and Engraved has a very similar breastplate buried inside its suit. There are several floating around all over the place. Philly has a bunch of similar ones. There are a lot of them in Madrid. So what we see here, rounded over the body, rolls at the arms and neck, central crease, nice clean lines running from the center to the edges. These rolls are turned from the inside to the outside. So the roll comes around and works this way. These are sort of the small, boring, lower-end version of this kind of roll. This is also a relatively thin, light piece. I don't actually remember how thick it is. 0.1, 0.12. There is a way. Why don't I? Let's go advertise. I have a tool here. If only someone had invented a tool. Let's go check this. Several people in this very room were involved in the design, and one person in this very room was involved in the manufacture. So let's go out to about there. Oh yeah, it's a nice thin breastplate. About 0.117. We're just shy of 1/8 inch. And the reason that they can make this work is out here, we're 0.078. So what we have is the material focused here in the center where you need it, and less material out at the edges where you don't need it as much. And right at the edge, there's a backplate running up underneath it. So you really don't want the extra bulk. So this gives you an idea of what they're doing. And this is not a particularly high-end piece. It's okay. It's not bad. But it's not all that great. Okay. We basically have the same idea. Same style of breastplate, same general period. I think this is a little earlier. The neckline gives us a big sweep, 1490, 95, probably 95. But it's a little more elegant in shape. It's deeper, it's more heavily creased, and the rolls are somewhat larger. In fact, they're kind of huge. They're enormous. So when Patrick was doing a demo at another one of these things, he was copying these rolls to do. They're still built the same way. We have rolls that are rolled out and folded in. And so you can see the raw edge here. This one has taken a little bit of damage. This corner is in terrible condition. Oh well. So you can't put it on quite as well. And these have been bent up a little bit, so it should curve over the shoulder a little more. This is one of the things that I will do that most museums won't do, at least on their tags. I'll tell you what's wrong with the pieces so that you don't copy the wrong feature or you don't interpret things incorrectly. So this should sort of curl over the shoulder a little more. And it's too small for me, obviously. I can jam myself in, but there we go.
Do you think the arm straps were pulled up during or moved up during the work line?
No. No, the question is, were the shoulders moved in the working life? I have plenty of pieces that have working life changes to them, but no, I think somebody just squashed it. And on the side, it's just somebody bent it in when they threw it in a bucket or something. I mean, it's just abuse. Sticking with the theme of breastplates, we've moved up into the 1540s. So we're in the 16th century, we're past 1505, 1510. The rolls, instead of going out, are now turning in. So they work like this. One roll on the top that's integral to the breastplate. We've also separated the rolls on the arms, and there's a little bit of sliding. So what it does is it allows you to make the breastplate wider than you could otherwise to provide more protection and still allow the amount of movement that's necessary. Again, it's not my size. We need some nice... Yeah, we need some nice, I don't know, 5'5", 200 or something, 5'5", 180. So we have a breastplate. This one is a little thicker, just a bit. And since we have this here, this one I remember, but that's a thin spot. There we go. Where's a nice thick spot? That's not bad. That's 0.210. And I've found a spot on here somewhere that's 0.23. To translate, we're not quite quarter inch. But down at the edge, 0.066. So we're going from quarter inch to 16 gauge to really be freewheeling about our thicknesses. This allows us to give the protection we need to give with to protect against guns. Actually, this piece has been modified, so I can talk through that. So what we have, straightforward, normal, ordinary breastplate. There are lots of them in grots that look just like this. Should have a fold about that long. I think, okay, I'm certain, that this was originally rough from the hammer and black. And the reason for that is when we look at it, I wonder if you can pick this up. When I'm wandering over the surface, what we see here is waviness as it moves along. That waviness is not the aesthetic that they wanted. They wanted a clean line. I mean, it's smooth, but it's faceted. And I see that either on rough from the hammer pieces or pieces where somebody has later cleaned it up. When you look at the pictures of the Kunstschott, the very famous armor, which I love, it's a great armor. You look at the old pictures pre-restoration and early post-restoration, it was rough from the hammer. And the backplate didn't have enough material for them to grind it all off, so it's still wavy. But anyway, the other thing that's interesting about this piece, which I don't think we'll get to pick up in the camera at all, there's a little bit of sign of it. Right here, if you look closely, there's a crucifix and a kneeling knight etched. So You've seen a few of the really elegant black with sort of an open white area with this etched knight and crucifix. This was one of those before it got cleaned, rusted, messed with, and all of that. So you can get a feel for what this used to be by looking between what's there now. Thank you, James. James lent us a couple of pieces to play with too. Moving into the 1550s, 1550, 1560, could be a little earlier, we've changed the shape. We're getting the beginnings of what will become a peas cod. Still have the gussets. They used to move. They don't anymore. So one of them has been sort of torn out and somebody riveted it pretty solid so it doesn't move. It should kick out here. This should be parallel to the edge. You want a nice clean line. It has a lot of weight to it. It has a lot of very nice shape to it. I think this gusset is a good restoration. I think this is a modern one. So you can look at the difference between the two and play with it. The other reason that, and it's got weight to it. You can see some of the horrors that happen, there we go, to the inside of a piece, especially right down at the crease, where they really wanted a beautiful crease in it, and were willing to leave some really horrible tool marks on a pretty decent piece. Now, the other thing that we can play with from here, if we look at this from the bottom, the way a breastplate fits, and I find this to be even more aggressive the lower end a piece goes. The cheaper the piece, the more people it needed to fit. Anything made for Charles V needed to fit Charles V on one day. So you could make it fit very closely, make it fit properly, make it the shape that was necessary to make him look marvelous. Armor is there to make you look marvelous and protect you. To make a breastplate work with a backplate, to make it easy to put on, to make it fit with things, to make it fit the human body also, you don't want the sides to come parallel. The sides do not come parallel. There's an open shape. I describe it rudely as a V because I'm using letters. It's not a V, but it's a wide open, rounded V. And what this does, partially, is your body is built this way. Your body widest spot is behind the center. But it also lets you make, in most cases, as Jeff told us this morning, not in the case of the Greenwich armor, the backplate a lot thinner. And if the backplate is thin, when you put them together, it'll just bend. And you can make it fit a lot of different people. You can I've jammed 80-pound different people of about the same height into the same breast and back. So we have our V, and I'll get a backplate and we'll show how that fits to it. A backplate. This backplate does not go with that breastplate, but we can get them to work together. The way that happens is this waist is sort of C-shaped. So the edges cut in past parallel. And that allows you to jam it into the breastplate. And for low-end armor, these are higher end than that, you can make very flexible sides and really just jam it in and let it slide in and out based on how big the person is. I have a munition 1505, 1510 breast and back, which probably weren't actually a pair originally. And you can bend them all over the place. You can make them fit to many different people. So what else do we get? The back plate is much wider than the breastplate because you don't need to move like this. You just don't. Comes up high, does things. It also has shape. And this isn't just to mimic the look of a shoulder blade. There's depth within here to allow your body to move inside it. It also means that, I don't know if I can do this. We'll find out. There we go. As you move your arm forward, it stays flush with your body on the edge. And a lot of backplates that I see made these days don't have that feature, and then your pauldrons catch inside your backplate. You go, huh, and you're stuck. So if the backplate cups to your body, and your pauldrons are built right, both things work together to let the pieces let you move the way you need to. So we have depth, we have rounded, and we have a C that lets it fit inside. One of the suits I have on my site has a breast and back, and they look like they go together pretty well, and they fit, and I've jammed them together. The backplate is that much wider than the breastplate. There's no way they ever had anything to do with each other before 1950. But because of the C and V game, you catch the edge and you just crank the belt and it sucks right on in. Oh, except for the really high-end ones like the one Jeff was copying, I find backplates to mostly be thin. Yes, there are some shot-proof backplates, and I own one. Flexible, and I was about to say something really useful. Oh, they don't generally play with material thickness in a backplate the same way they play with it on a breastplate. So the breastplate is thick and thin. And I've taken gauges to a lot of my backplates, and they get thin right where they would get thin if you dish at the shoulder blades. They provide protection, but part of what they do is act as a harness to hold the breastplate on as well. Yes?
I'm assuming that the rolls on the backplate mimic the direction the roll is on the breastplate.
If you can find a pair that go together, you can make an assumption. You mean as in fold, the way they're folded, or?
Externally versus internally.
Oh, yeah. Except for some interesting exceptions. Do we want to go into the interesting exceptions? Well, why not? In the late 16th century and 17th century, there are some really thick breastplates. The thickest I think I've ever owned was 0.38. So 3/8 of an inch, it's a pretty beefy breastplate. And sometimes when you're making a 3/8 inch thick breastplate, you have so much material lying there for the roll that they give up. And they just fold it out and grind it round. So I have 2 of those, I think, now. And you can do it. It's a rare thing. It's not common, but it does happen on some of these really thick ones. I have a late 16th century and a 17th century one done that way.
Okay, so if the breast is overlapping the back and the arm sides are whole, if it's going to adjust its size, how does that rear arm size interact with the front plate?
It can get, if you're being on the sloppy end, right? You're the low-end munition stuff where you're really going to do crazy things. Not terribly well, but well enough. If you look at the backplate that's floating around, the ends of the edges are rounded, and the roll tends to die out and disappear. And so you can sort of fudge the two together and play that game. Yeah, really high-end stuff does some really glorious things, and they have little stepped edges, and they really go to a spot or 3 spots right near each other. But for the anything you ordered by the 100 or ordered by the 1,000, the breastplate sort of comes down and the backplate sort of comes in, and that's relatively flat, and you just jam it together a little more. And sometimes it sits really nicely, and sometimes it sits a little stupid, but it's back here, so who cares? Yes?
Wait, what are we consistently getting wrong about the shaping of these objects that you're constantly telling us about?
Well, for backplates often annoy me because they just don't fit a human body. The generic first time you build a backplate, and I'll pick on Tom, he's dead. Tom was building a backplate a long time ago, a nice 16th century backplate, and it looks like a backplate. Everything was fine. It's rounded at the shoulder blades, and it comes out, and everything's cool, and it has rolls around the edges. And he had done it by dishing a little bit in the shoulder blades and then raising the edges and trying to get it. And it all looked like a backplate. And then when you put it on, you found out that, and we had our straight edge from yesterday. Can we find anything? I mean, an arrow, anything, it doesn't matter. What we found out is it could never work, because the way he had done it, the center of the back was here, and it came up and it came down, and then he rolled it back in. And the center of the back plate was actually inside the plane of the edge rolls, which means you had something trying to jam into your backbone or stick it out from your shoulders. So, there, okay. So what we see is there's a gap. The edges are closer to your body than the center, and then it sweeps on and gets deeper and deeper and deeper so that it fits on.
The shape of my back, or is that a void for my back to move?
Matt can have a rant about it. I'm going to say it is a void for your back to move into. Are you okay with that?
I mean, you do need something.
You do need something to move into. Yes.
Especially down low where your spine bends.
Down low where your spine bends. That's another one of the things. The human body is lima bean shaped, but when you bend, this flattens out. And if you build a lima bean shaped backplate, you'll kill yourself. It's just a terrible idea. Also, it's really hard to get a grinder into this pit if you have it curved here, right? It's a curve, outward curve, just slightly. You can grind it better, which we all like here, and it fits your body in more parts of its motion. So you sort of, you don't need to be able to do this. That's absurd. But you do want to be able to do sort of this and have it fit to you. We all have different things we care about. I want to understand what they were doing and why they were doing it. So that's why I took a gauge to the breastplate. They cared about thickness in the middle. This is where you're going to get hit. When you have an overlap with the backplate, some of the 17th century ones, like the arquebusers, breast and backs, they are actually pretty thick, and then they step down to thin, so where the backplate will overlap. If you put two pieces of 12 gauge on top of each other, you end up with this big, and a roll and everything, you end up with a big lump of crud down in here, which you don't want. You thin it out, you save weight. You're going to put another piece of plate underneath it, well, you're getting extra anyway, so why not? But really, look at the shape of the piece. At least some of the areas of the SCA where I have seen, you end up with really narrow breastplates because everybody wants to do this. And you don't do this when you're fighting. It's a pretty weird thing to, I'd rather hit somebody. So he's out there. So this is yours. Yes, exactly. So when in doubt, I go to Mac for the ergonomics on a human. I look at the real pieces. So we end up in the same place. I look at it and it's about that wide, and he says do this, and you end up with it about that wide. So that's where you're aiming for. It'll bump into you a little bit at the most extreme motion, but who cares? Every quarter inch here is important. There's a lance coming in here, and a lance is a bad thing to have in your body. It's really bad. So thickness, fit to the body. You obviously can't support it on your neck. That would be really terrible. You don't want to build it wider than necessary down here, and wider than necessary is your measurement. You want it to squeeze you in a little bit so that it fits. Remember, the goal is to look marvelous. It also helps support the weight and various other things too, but you squeeze yourself a little bit. Mac built a clamp out of a Harbor Freight thing with a big long arms and a ratchet. And so you can put it on your body and say, okay, that's where you are. Crack, 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 tick, 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 tick. Okay, does that hurt? Can you do this? Okay, that's where the breastplate should be. So, building a breastplate here, bad. Building your padding and then building a breastplate over it is a horror. Stay away from the thing. So, you're going to you and a little bit in. And you can make, from the front at least, almost anybody look pretty good by just shaping that into the waist and then kick it out from the fold and give you some proper shape to it. I don't have any shape, so I don't play the game.
If I can interject one of my
Please.
aphorisms. If you don't look better in your armor than you do at the beach, your armor is failure.
Yes. Well, no, he should be fired. Yes, you should. Come on, you make Brad Pitt look better. That's easy enough. You give him some more even shapes and everything. Okay, so that's sort of the aesthetic round of what's wrong with breastplates.
What about the waistline?
The waistlines vary. If you look at the ones that we have, they're going up and down. But there's a cardinal sin, which is I think one of Mac's pet peeves too, along with big dangly straps and huge aventails and all of that. But if you take a pattern made for me and just sort of size it up a little bit and put it on some of the people here who are a bit larger in waist size, what happens is you have something that used to sit flat and level at your waist, and it does this. And it rides up in the front. And no. I mean, never. Never. I mean, you never say never in armor. Like I said, I've got outward turn rolls in 1720, but never. So you vary between flat, and that's relatively uncommon. You know, there's some 14th, there's some early 16th century, but it is uncommon. To dipping down a little, dipping down more, dipping down a lot. The breastplate that has the semi-piece cod is not a deep waist drop. That's a sort of fair to middling waist drop. And then in the 1590s, you can get into these insane drops. John had fun building a big drop on his. So they drop way on down. But the sides are always still here because you've still got to be able to do motion. The back plate is still here. Yes, there's an exception in 1550 with the weird long waisty things. Let's leave that to the side. And if you want a discussion on that, I have a paper on that on my website. Yes?
How close to that final thickness do you think they started with as far as you get close to a quarter inch in the center?
I wouldn't start anything thinner than 3/8, and I'd probably go thicker to get to quarter. My feeling, which is mine, which has nothing to do with anything I can prove, is that they were not raising in the strictest hammering from the outside, pushing down sense that we use it, a lot of breastplates. They were hammering out a blank that had the thickness where they needed it and then squashing it, the Mac term for squashing, hitting into the anvil, squeezing the material. They were squeezing it out. And I'll go into things about my thoughts about that tomorrow, okay? But yeah, 3/8. I made a really thin little toy breastplate for my kid out of 1/8 plate. And so it ended about 0.11 in the middle. And, it was about right. Now, they make thinner ones. I've got a circa 1600 one that looks like it might have come out of Gratz that's 0.5 to 0.6. But it's 0.5 to 0.6 all over. So they had to start with thicker than that. And 0.05, sorry. Yes, you were right. 0.05 to 0.06. Good correction. Wade got that wrong. So it's sword proof. A bullet would blow right through it. But you got another guy armed and it didn't take much steel. So, okay. Gauntlets. I'll play with gauntlets some.